were words uttered that were offensive to people, and that I wasn't able to lay out the broader context.
And welcome back to Buchanan and Press. Again, we're waiting on word from London that news conference expected any time now between Prime Minister Tony Blair and German Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder. We'll bring that to you live as soon as it happens. And you just saw Congressman Jim Moran of Northern Virginia. We talked about him yesterday. He got himself in some hot water when he told a town meeting, in effect, that if only the Jewish leaders in this country would stand up and oppose the war in Iraq, that war would never happen. Joining us now to see if there's any way Mr. Moran could dig himself out of this hole, Jackson Bain, who's chairman of Bain and Associates, who makes it a living of helping people restore their reputations. So, Jackson, is it hopeless for Jim Moran? Anything he can do to get out of this mess?
Let me tell you a couple of things. First of all, I'm not here to defend Jim Moran, but I am here to tell you that there is a way out. And
Are you listening?
There is a way.
Are you listening,
Jim
Moran?
Pay attention to this.
Right.
Number one, I mean, the rule number one in crisis communications, if you mess up, say you messed up, say you're sorry, and then immediately connect with the only target audience that really matters. In his case, that's the people who actually vote for him. Those are his constituents. It's not Tom Daschle, it's Mr. and Mrs. Smith in Arlington, Virginia, or Fairfax, Virginia, who will be voting for him. Connect with them by community meetings and outreach just as much as they possibly can, and they're doing that. I mean, his office is scheduling these things like sending frisbees out into the
Jackson,
air. It's just amazing.
let me ask you this.
He's got to do more of that to show the value of what he's delivering beyond the issue.
I read his statement this morning. There is not a trace of malice in it. He said, what does he say? If the Jewish community weren't for this thing, we wouldn't be going to war or something like that. It's like saying, if the Cuban Americans down there in Miami weren't all for the embargo of Cuba, we'd probably lift it. I've
got a better one than that. It's just like somebody saying that all the news media in the United States should gather together and be against the war, or that somebody has any control over what journalists report and say and do. It's like gathering. It's that collective noun that's the
I don't
error.
think the guy's any malice in order. I don't think it was anti-Semitic or meaning expression of hatred for Jewish folks. But I do agree with you. What he ought to do, frankly, now that he's made his statement, clarified, I'd go right to the Jewish Community Center down in Alexandria and say, look, here's what I said. Here's what I meant, folks. I'm sorry it's been misrepresented, but at the same time, it was badly said. And you folks have been with me all the way, and here's my feelings on the war. And you asked me questions for 45 minutes.
Sure, and connect personally, visibly, directly with those people. I think he has to do one more thing. I think he has to show his value. In other words, what have you done for me lately is a constant ring in every voter's minds. Tip O'Neill used to say all politics is local.
Right.
All politics is personal these days, and it's a nanosecond, I mean, really. It's a nanosecond difference between the time somebody says something and the time you're ready to throw that person out of office. So that's got to stop. We are not going to get any good people to run for office.
All right. I want to ask you about somebody else's in this town whose reputation might need a little polishing right now.
Okay.
We just heard from Bob Kerr that you got President Bush down in the White House. Hasn't been seen in like 4 days because they've got him locked away in the Oval Office. He's on the phone making these constant calls. We can't get 9 votes in the Security Council. He can't even get Cameroon and Angola and Guinea, we're the most powerful nation on the earth, to support our position. I mean, he looks to me like he's a totally ineffective president on the biggest issue that we've faced maybe in our lifetime.
Bill, the last time I sat in this chair, we talked about exactly this issue about what George Bush was supposed to have done, what he should do to try to get the American people, and then all of those people would have to be with George Bush to support him. And the answer was, make it about people. In other words, you can't just be about tubes of aluminum tubes. It can't just be about numbers and how many missiles were destroyed versus how many were left. It's got to be about people. He has not been able to do that, and this war is not justified in a lot of people's minds.